Thanks, Deborah, and your dog's friend for hosting today. I'm Erica Pitlavani, and I'm with Woof's Dog Training Center in Arlington, Virginia. I'm a Karen Pryor Academy certified training partner, and I'm also a certified trick dog instructor, as well as a stunt dog judge through Do More With Your Dog. I teach a range of training classes from basic to advanced, but particularly including things like rally obedience and a few levels of tricks classes. And I also do private behavior modification with people and their dogs for more serious behavior challenges, from reactivity to aggressive behaviors, anxiety, and other kinds of challenges. What's interesting that I have discovered as I work with people on all of these different kinds of problems, as well as all of these different kinds of fun behaviors, is that there's an awful lot of commonality between the two kinds of training. We think of them as being very separate, but a lot of the training principles and the training approaches that we take go along with each other. Today, we're going to talk about how we can blur the lines between training things for fun and training things for problems that might be more serious and otherwise things that might be influencing our life in a negative way.
All right. So, as I was saying, one of the things we need to start with is understanding what it is that we're talking about when we're talking about tricks. When we think of tricks, we often think of something like what we're seeing in this photo, where we've got a woman with, circus clothes on and dogs wearing plumes on their head, and they're doing all this kind of fancy, goofy, funny stuff. We tend to think of tricks as being things that are for performances, for fun, for entertainment, and they're maybe frivolous, silly, goofy. The catch is that there's no definition for what makes something into a trick. There's no book that defines that, X behavior is a trick and Y behavior is obedience. What's important there is that the way that we're defining tricks usually is about how we're using the behavior, and not at all about whether the behavior is a specific action or not. And it's interesting because what does change when we're teaching these behaviors is our attitude. When we're working with our dogs, they don't know whether something is a trick or not. As far as our dogs are concerned, everything is a trick. Sit, down, stay, all tricks. Stay when there are a lot of distractions around, really good trick. The biggest thing that changes when we are working with tricks is that our attitude is different. When we're working on something that is for obedience or something that's serious, something that's really important, we are very intense about it. And when we're teaching tricks, we laugh. We are having fun. We're breathing. We're not worried about every little mistake. We are unlikely to do things like say at our dog when something goes wrong. We're just enjoying the moment. And that's really important, especially if we're dealing with a dog maybe who has anxiety, fear, they're stressed, they're anxious. It's really important that we think about what our attitude is bringing to that training situation so that they can also relax along with us. So as far as I'm concerned, the definition of a trick is about how we are approaching the training of the behavior more than what the behavior is itself. I have yet to come up with something that is completely non-functional. So you could say that a trick is something that doesn't have a practical purpose. I don't have any examples of that. If you want to try to stump me, hit the chat and see if you can come up with something that at the end of the presentation, because hopefully you'll be able to come up with lots of ideas for how something is functional during this next hour or two. First category of tricks that I want to talk about is targeting. And targeting in the context of animal training is touching having your animal touch some body part to some target item. In this case, like the photo that's here, we've got Katya and Kiwi, and she's doing a classic nose target. Kiwi touches her nose to Katya's hand. We use targets every day in regular life. We are used to targets being a major part of our world, where we are expecting to move to a particular position or place based on a target. So in these examples here, we've got a stop line. We know this tells us where we're going to put the wheels of our car. That's important because if we don't stop at the right place, we may be blocking a driveway or blocking a street. In this case, the bicycle has a different stop line than the car because they need to have a different line of sight than the car does. We have the cue lines that tell us where to stand in line so that we don't have to have the anxiety of watching to see who's next, who's next, who's next. And of course, the new targets in our world, the 6-foot markers that tell us where we're going to be 6 feet apart from everybody. So not only do I know where to stand that's 6 foot from somebody else, but the person behind me also knows where to stand that they're 6 feet away from me, so that we don't have to be having as much brain power put into making all these calculated decisions. Here are a couple of examples of some targets in a kind of a real, these are actually from some of my classes. You're going to see a variety of different targets, hand targets being used, and you're going to see low and some high. You're going to see left and right. You're going to see some that are used to get the dog's attention and some that are used to put the dog into a particular position. And as we watch this, I just want you to pay attention to what the trainer's purpose is and think about what they might be using that target for.
Good job. All right, come on. Ready?
We're still in. Everything from the video that you just saw has are examples from my advanced classes, which I found really interesting the first time I went looking for video examples, because we start teaching hand targeting in basic obedience class and we work on it in intermediate obedience class. But it wasn't until I got to my advanced class videos that I found a lot of really good examples of people using hand target in ways that were functional. And that is because hand targeting is really easy to teach, but it's actually kind of advanced to be able to use it in this sophisticated way to keep the dogs active, keep them moving, keep them motivated. You could also think of these, some of these moves. You can see that some of them have a touch followed by a spin, touch followed by a lie down, or moving into heel position. These are all kind of a secret handshake that the handler has with their dog. They have this little routine of behaviors that they do together, and becomes something that sort of ties them together, bonds them a little bit, gets that connection going. So as we're going through, I want you to be thinking about what are some little moves that you can do with your dog that might have the same effect. Let's talk about how you can use targeting for muzzle training. Muzzle training is, of course, very useful for lots of dogs. You may have a dog that ought to be doing some muzzle training, even if you haven't actually done it as of yet. Traditionally, we teach muzzle training with, stick some peanut butter in a muzzle, have them lick the the peanut butter out of the muzzle, and they can get used to sticking their face into the muzzle. And that's really great, and that's a good way to start working on muzzle training. However, it's not as helpful if they if the peanut butter's not in there anymore. It doesn't necessarily make them want to stick their face into it. It's not a helpful it doesn't help as much with the transition to just wearing the muzzle. So for this game, we can use targeting to teach the dog to target the muzzle as a game or as a trick, and get them really comfortable with taking that voluntary action to put their own face into the muzzle. And here's an example of this.
Go shove your nose in the muzzle. Yes. Cheerio. Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Cheerio while playing this game thinks that this is a super fun game. She doesn't know that muzzles are supposed to be creepy or scary, so she's perfectly happy to keep running through and putting her nose into this muzzle. This is actually Jen Thomas, one of our trainers, and her dog. The next video with the muzzle is Laura and HT and Nymeria, and they've already done this step. So Nymeria's got the muzzle game. She's happy to put her face into the muzzle, and now we're at the step where we want to actually hook the muzzle on her head and have her walk around with it. And this is a difficult step because muzzles are heavy, they're weird, they're all over the face. And who wants to wear that on their head? Nobody wants nobody wants to wear a mask. So getting her used to this is the next step. And here's how we use targeting to help with that.
Okay, what are we doing? Muzzle. Good girl. Oh, sorry. Okay. There you go. Good girl. Okay. Here we go. All right. Muzzy.
This took a little longer than ideal, but
You're fine.
Good girl.
You're okay.
Good girl, Mimi.
Okay, what's that?
Touch. Yes, good girl. Can you go over here? Yes, good girl. Good girl. Yes, good girl.
Let me touch. Yes. Oh. Touch. Touch. Good girl. What she got?
Come here. Come
so just playing a simple touch game with the muzzle on her face keeps her busy, keeps her distracted, gives her something to do other than to be sort of fixated on the fact that she's got this thing on her head. And one of the other huge advantages of doing it this way is that we can watch her behavior to tell how she's feeling about the situation. So at some point when we do this, we might see we ask for the touch and she stops and she maybe puts her paw on her face, or she's moving very, very slowly to come to the touch. And at other times when we do this, we might see her running over and just putting her nose right into the hand to do that target. And that tells us what her comfort level is at the time with this muzzle on her face. If she's very enthusiastic, then we've got a kind of green light, we can keep going. If she's looking uncomfortable or starting to move very slowly, then that's important, and it gives us the information that we need to slow down a little bit and make it easier for her. All right. Next example is Joanna and Gus, and they are working on an entirely different problem. So this is voluntary leashing up. And Gus and Joanna, the problem that Gus was having was that he did not want the dog walker to put his leash on. So the dog walker would come over and go to leash him up, and he would sometimes growl or even snap. Now, I'd like to be very clear that most of the time when we're seeing a problem like this, the answer is that you can't have a dog walker come walk your dog anymore. Sorry, we can't always fix that problem. But this did not seem to be a particularly dangerous problem. It seems to be not a problem that Gus had in general with the dog walker, but it seems to be specific to having that reach situation for the collar. So we switched over to using flip lead, like a new style flip leash that he could just put his head into easily. And we taught him to put his head in, and then we taught him to back up so he could take his own head out. This is what it looks like.
Boy. Hey, back. Good boy. Good boy. Loop. Oh, so good. Good boy. Good boy. Back. Good boy. I ran out of treats.
Let's do it once more.
Ready? Loop. Loop. Good boy.
Good boy.
Back.
Good boy.
This was a really great trick for Gus because he has complete control over putting his own head through that leash, and he has control of backing back out of the leash, and he thinks it's a super fun game. You can see how excited he is about playing this game. He's having a great time. When he goes now to go play this game with the walker, who was very savvy, they could also then play this as a fun game. And more importantly, when the walker would walk in, if he put the leash out and Gus said, "No, thank you, I don't want to do that," we can end this whole game, no harm, no foul, before it's even begun, because Gus has the control to say no, rather than having a situation where Tom only knows he says no because he has walked all the way over, put his hand on the collar, and then he's, Gus has to snap and growl at him. So this gives a lot of control to Gus for this situation. The next the last kind of targeting that I'm going to talk about right here is paw targeting. And so far we've been talking about mostly face-based targeting or nose targeting, but paws can be used for targeting as well. And of course we've got like a shake or give paw, which is a cute trick, but it's also the predecessor for any work I'm going to do for wiping feet, nail trimming, grooming feet, and things like that. This little video is Kelly Spring. This is also in Trick's class, and this is her working with her dog on having her dog trim her own feet. Trim her own nails, sorry.
Set to throw a few treats because he's so packed fast coming back, we're always ready to be treating it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And then you want to make sure wherever he's headed, that he is getting treated 100% of the time. Because if he's not, then it's going to turn into nothing.
Okay.
He won't know that it means anything.
Like target.
So you see how many treats he's
Yes.
getting? That's not too many. This is a little bit different than a lot of the stuff we do with reducing treats. Because here we're not. Here you go.
Target.
So all these tricks that we were just talking about are targeting. Now, the next big category is stationing. Targeting is really good for kind of moving your dog to different places. Stationing is a good way to ask your dog to stay or settle in a particular particular location, on a particular object, or in some particular position. So here we've got just these target mats with the dogs on the mats. Stationing is going to be an important part of just about any kind of animal performance you ever watch ever. So if you watch a bird in flight show at the zoo or at some park someplace, they're going to have the birds flying to specific perches or specific gloves in specific locations. If you watch a show at SeaWorld back in the day, I guess this is happening in fewer places these days, but the dolphins would station in front of a particular trainer. They know exactly where their spot is that they're supposed to go. If you are watching America's Got Talent and there's more than one dog or pig or whatever on the stage, those animals are going to have a spot to go off on the side of the edges of the stage that they're going to go. Because stationing is so valuable to give an animal the clear direction for what they're supposed to be doing when they're not supposed to be doing anything else. The first trick that kind of goes along with stationing is this is a hop up trick. And I think of this as just what do you have near you? So this is Primrose. She's my dog, one of my dogs. And this is her hopping up onto a garbage can, hopping up onto a bench, hopping up onto a crate, which is questionably safe. But basically, I've got all kinds of pictures of her on top of things because she is perfectly happy to go get up on things and hang out there. And this is really useful because what we find is that dogs are usually happier to stay put or park it when they're up on top of something as opposed to when they're on the ground. Stay is much easier up high. This next video is, oh, actually, do you want to try, oh no, that didn't work. This next video is Cody and Sally with Cody, and they are doing the hop up game, but then at the end, you're going to see something that they do that's really useful.
Good boy. All right. All right, there we go. Good boy.
This is great because Cody's so used to hopping up on things and jumping up and down and just jumping on things, off things. It's just a fun game. He needs to get on the scale at the vet's office. No big deal. He hops up on the scale. They take his weight. Easy peasy. Another kind of station is just to go to your spot or go to your bed. And I consider this actually a foundation behavior more than even a trick because it's so overwhelmingly useful. It becomes a little bit trick territory though when we talk about sending dog from a distance. So we start, basic and intermediate classes, we start with dogs on settle on your mat. In advanced classes, we often do things that involve sending them from a distance to their spot, to their mat, because we can use that as a stepping stone into more advanced distance type behaviors. But this is, I'm going to put this in the trick category because of the cue that Shelly, Keel, and Ellie are using here, the way that they're using the mat and the signal that she's using to send Ellie to the mat, I think is a good one to include here.
Come. Yes. Good girl. Good girl. Ellie, touch. Good girl. Sit. Okay, Ellie.
Here's the good one. And that is not to say that Ellie's going to be perfect if a guest really comes over right now and there's a real person there. That doesn't mean that Ellie's going to perfectly go to her spot, go to her mat. But this is a really good start. And if it's something that they, they kind of play around with, that it's a game, it's much more likely she's going to do it for real. PeekaBoo is another fantastic stationing exercise. So first of all, it's adorable. It's very cute when dogs are doing this little kind of between your legs behavior. But it's also very helpful because it can provide a sort of little portable fortress for your dog. If your dog is nervous or anxious at all, this gives them a safe spot that they can be. If you just want to keep tabs on what your dog is doing while you are paying attention to other things, it's really helpful to have them in this spot so you can feel whether they're paying attention or not. And also, this is a really big one around here in our area. There are a lot of people and dogs living in condos or apartments and things with elevators. And so this is a great trick for elevators or vet's offices or other small spaces where you need your dog to be kind of contained in an area and not be kind of off wandering every place else. There they are, they're in their spot, they're parked there. They tend to, again, this tends to be one that dogs really enjoy doing. And so once they're comfortable doing it, it's easy to get them to do it when you need them to do it. Obviously, if you are short or your dog is particularly tall, this is not going to be in your tricks list. All right, here are a couple of examples with combining the target and the station. These are, again, blurred lines between what's a target and what's a station, but these are practical examples. You will notice that neither of these are dogs. One of these is cats and one of these is a bird. Principles apply no matter what kind of animal we're talking about. The first video is actually my mother. This is from a few years ago, some things that she was doing with her cats. And you will see that 2 of the cats know high five, which is a targeting trick, and all of the cats understand the idea of stationing.
Good boy. High five. Sit. Sit. No. Good boy. High five. Good boy. High five. Good boy. These guys don't have.
Some of the cats can understand to do their targeting tricks. All of the cats could understand how to stay put and wait for their turn. And even though they didn't have platforms or some fancy tool that they were stationing on, they all understood kind of how to be in that row and be patient. The next video is Parrot that we were taking care of. Actually belongs to a trainer friend of ours, and he was staying with us for a couple of months. I think they were doing renovations on their house.
We've taught Ruben to station as a way to get things in and out of his cage without him getting out of it. If I wanted to change the water bowl, I can't open this right now without him getting out. But we've taught him to target this little orange block of wood. Good. So while he's targeting that wood and getting pine nuts for it, good. I can come over here and change the objects in his cage. Good. Without worrying about him getting out. And that's done by teaching him just to target that object. Yes. And then putting the object where I want him to be. Good. Nicely done.
So these were some examples of how targeting and stationing maybe can be combined. And next, we'll talk about what kind of some of the bigger behavior challenges are that we might be dealing with. And this can include things like dogs, wild or out of control. We see this a lot with dogs who are younger, like 2 and under, just kind of the manic behavior, jumping, leash pulling, maybe biting up on people's arms, biting clothing, racing around. Dogs who are reactive to dogs, people, strollers, bikes, things in the environment. Usually when we're talking about this, we're talking about dogs who are doing a lot of barking, lunging, growling, sort of overt feeling feels like more of overt aggression. Dogs who are anxious, pacing, vocalizing, unable to settle, can also include dogs that are shut down. They're so anxious that they just sort of stop engaging with you or stop engaging with the environment, can't do anything else, can't focus. and dogs who are fearful, which has a lot of overlap maybe with anxiety, but maybe hiding, avoiding, don't want to go outside because they're crouching really low, uncomfortable. Again, also uncomfortable engaging the environment. Now, this is not any kind of a scientific list. This is not a complete list. This is not, this is just sort of some common buckets of challenges that I see a lot. But of course, you may see, you're likely to see that dogs are going to fall, your problems are going to fall into multiple categories on this list. This could include the example that Deborah, that you raised a minute ago. Dog is uncomfortable with somebody touching them, growling and biting when they're being touched. That is probably they're fearful or anxious. It could just be touch sensitivity. I just don't like to be touched, and that's possible as well. It doesn't have to fall into one of these categories, but we're going to address it the same way anyway. So when these things are happening, we are pretty sure that our dog is having some big feelings about what's going on. They are frustrated, they're stressed, or they're anxious, they're feeling afraid or unsafe. It's maybe that they really want something to be different than it is. They want to go see their friend. They want not to be touched right now. They're uncomfortable with the situation that's happening around them. One of the things that's interesting is that when dogs are acting scared or fearful, we tend to have a lot of sympathy for them, versus when dogs are acting aggressively, we may not always have as much sympathy for them. We may feel like they're acting out or misbehaving when they're really having the same big feelings that the scared Heidi dog is having, which is that they are scared and uncomfortable and feeling not okay. It is a pretty safe bet that when a dog is acting in aggression, that they're not feeling good. When this is happening, we're also having some big feelings. We're feeling frustrated. Why is this still happening? We're stressed or anxious because maybe we're on high alert, worrying about what's going to happen next. We may feel afraid or unsafe. We're worried that our dog is going to knock us over, or that if they pull away from us, they're going to maybe hurt somebody. We're worried that, my mother's going to come over and the dog's going to bite her. She goes to try to pet her. We're also maybe feeling embarrassed. It's not, nobody feels good about having, that dog. And we're probably also feeling worried about our dog. We're concerned for how they're feeling as well, hopefully. We don't want them to feel scared or uncomfortable. So how tricks can come into this is this can help us with creating a new plan. The new plan can be a lot of things. It doesn't have to be one thing, but what it can't be is just sitting there and hoping for the best, just hoping everything's going to be fine. And maybe this time, my dog's not going to bite that person. No, it's going to happen again. So we don't want to just sit there and kind of keep doing the same thing over and over again. We want to create a new idea for what we are going to do and what our dog is going to do. And so we can use that idea we talked about earlier of sort of a secret handshake, that we can give our dogs some stuff to do that keeps them occupied, keeps them not focused on the concerning behaviors. And ultimately, that provides a sort of security blanket for them. If they know that every time somebody scary comes over, we're going to first maybe make sure that nobody's trying to touch them, which we'll talk about a little bit more later, but also that we can do, some sit, some spin, some touch, something else. That gives them a predictable idea for what's going to happen next. They aren't left in limbo about how things are going around them. Don't worry about that person, that scary thing over there. Come over here and play with me. I put tricks into two different categories of energy level. I think of high energy tricks and I think of low energy tricks. High energy tricks include a lot of movement, act or activity, and that could be things like you saw earlier, some high hand touches where the dog's jumping up to come touch the hand. Spin is high energy. Sit up and beg requires some energy and movement. We've got things that are low energy, where we're asking our dog to hold still, calm, breathe. And that isn't going to cover most of our stationing activities. It's going to cover, taking a bow, chin rest, which I don't think we talk about in here today. PeekaBoo, go to this spot, hold that position. Now, you are probably going to think, all right, my dog's being a crazy maniac. Why don't I plan on doing some low energy tricks? And that would be a good idea, but I'm going to say no. That's not actually your best idea. You want to look at some high energy tricks. And you're going to say, high energy tricks, my dog's crazy. Why would I want to do that? And the reason is because it gives you an opportunity to take this dog who's already crazy and already worked up and redirect that energy to something else. So you're going to be able to change the subject with your tricks, doing something that your dog is capable of doing. Your dog is already a little bit wound up. Let's take that energy and use it as a distraction from whatever it is that's upsetting to them or bothering them. If your dog is in motion, they have less time to think about what's happening than if your dog is in a stay of some sort. So what I really don't want is I don't want my dog to be dwelling on the fact that somebody scary is about to pet them, which we don't want to have happen. And I don't want them to be dwelling on the fact that there's that dog across the street that they're all upset about. I want them to be able to think about something else and focus on something different. While we're doing all this, and I'm playing these games with my dog, it's going to help shift the focus back to me instead of focusing on the whatever the trigger is that is causing my problem to begin with. Once my dog is focused on me, I can then take that energy and I can change the subject again by asking my dog to maybe start calming down and doing something that's a little bit easier, a little bit more settled, but maybe something that's not quite so easy to do as the tricks that are in movement, which are going to be the case. It is really important to note here that we think about when our dog is doing something we don't like, we think about the opposite of that behavior being sit quietly and look at me. Sit quietly and look at me is an extremely difficult behavior to do. It is much easier for your dog to be in motion and to be moving around quite a bit. I'm not against having your dog sit quietly and go behave yourself over there, sit and patiently wait, but that's an advanced skill. And so at the beginning stages, it's significantly easier if you can get your dog just doing some things that involve movement. A couple examples here. We've got Sensony and Rex. The first video is going to be something that you're really familiar with seeing. This is Rex having a little bit of a meltdown. We are doing a session and there's a dog off to the side. Sensony is not quite ready to work with him. And so many of you are going to be familiar. You can see here, she's not really sure quite what she should be doing with herself. This was obviously not an ideal setup because there wasn't a full plan in place, and she wasn't ready with kind of what her stuff was going to be when we had the other dog in the room. So this next clip is going to show what we want it to look like, and she is going to be doing some things with Rex that keep him a little bit more busy and more occupied. So much better. And I want to point out that we are not on purpose, we're not making an effort to keep Rex from looking at the other dog. He, some points, can go over and look at the other dog, and that's fine. And in fact, it's critical because he's not going to be able to be comfortable with the other dog unless he also has opportunities to see that the other dog is there. So using the tricks as a distraction is less about preventing him from looking at the other dog, which is not our goal, and more about letting him get comfortable that, yeah, the other dog's there. It's not a big deal. Everyone's good. They're doing a thing. We're doing a thing. Everyone's happy. That's going to be even more true in this next video, which is going to be Tamara and Bella. And actually, let me pull this slide up so you can see what that setup looks like. We've got a stuffed dog in this setup, and Bella and Tamara are pretty far away. And if we let them get much closer, you would see a reaction pretty much like what I showed in the previous video. But of course, I don't want that to happen. That's never our goal. So we're working at a nice big distance. In this video, I want you to watch for 3 things. I want you to watch, you can see Bella licking her lips when she looks at the decoy dog, and you can see some other signs of maybe stress that she's showing. You will notice that, as I was saying a moment ago, we are not keeping her 100% occupied with tricks. We're letting her have time to look and watch and absorb what's happening over at the decoy dog. And I want you to watch that at the beginning of the video, it's really hard for her to do her tricks. And as we work through, it becomes easier and easier for her to do this. So watch for stress signals, watch for the down time between tricks, and watch for it becoming easier. And then here is that pretty. So again, we're using tricks here that are very active, that are keeping her moving. This is a lot more reassuring for her than if we were, in fact, asking her to stay on a mat or do some kind of a settle. The movement you can see here is actually gives her that break, gives her that moment to relax a little bit. Okay.
We have 2 questions specifically on high energy.
Yep.
One is, if you have a high energy dog and you're doing these tricks, couldn't that be a problem with displaced aggression?
Yes.
And working up the dog more?
It would, it's going to be a judgment call. And in fact, I should have said with Bella, I should have also pointed out the spins that we're doing with her. She's a big shepherd. She's a big girl. It may not be a good idea to do something like spin with a dog that you feel like you struggle to control, or maybe outweighs you a little bit, or a dog that you think might do quick, sharp lunges. I don't know that I would do spin on leash with a dog like that. If I have a dog who's got potential redirected aggression, I have to be thoughtful about what kind of tricks I would do with that dog as well. So I don't know that tricks, I'm trying to think if there's a scenario where tricks would, I don't know that would cause redirected aggression, because if they're already amped and wound up, my goal for that would be to move the dog away from my body in some sense. So if I've got a dog that might be inclined to come and bite me, well, maybe 2 parts to this answer. I might want to do a hand target that involves me asking the dog to come over here and touch away from me so that they're not coming up and biting my actual body. And then the second thing is if I've got a dog who I'm really concerned about turning around and nailing me if they see another dog, then I may just be very focused on defensive handling at that point, keeping the leash very, very short and avoiding situations where that might happen. And I know that may not be a full answer. I'm looking to see if there's anything else on the question.
Well,
I don't know if I see it.
know how you know when you can move off from focusing on you and get on with your walk or whatever you're trying to do.
Sorry, read that again. Say that again.
It's how do you know when you can move off from focusing on you and get on with your walk?
That's a good question. I'd say it depends. And on a walk, how much of the walk do I feel like I need my dog to be focused on me? If my dog is young and crazy and energetic and there's a lot going on in their action, there's a lot happening, I'm probably going to dedicate more of the walk to having them do some things that involve engaging with me than I would do if I've got a 8-year-old dog who just is wandering along sniffing things. I'm, in the latter case, the dog's behaving themselves. I'm fine to let's just walk and we'll do our thing, and I'm going to la la la, look around and let the dog la 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 and look around, and it'll be fine. The level of engagement I need is going to depend on that sort of level of training that I think my dog needs. Now, what I will do when it comes to walks is I am really big advocate for taking turns on a walk, which means I want to spend part of my walk asking for engagement, and then I'm going to spend the next part of the walk letting my dog just go smell things. And then I'm going to ask for engagement again, and then I'm going to let them go smell things again. And when I say ask for engagement, that could be that I'm doing more obedience-y feel things where I'm asking them to come and line up at my side and look at me. And it could be that I'm asking them to do, spin or touch or something kind of just silly. It doesn't really matter. But what I want is on that walk, I want to make sure that they can check back in with me very regularly. And you'll kind of know when they're ready to graduate from that, because when you're not asking them to pay attention to you constantly, they're not dragging you someplace. In some cases, I will say, in some cases, you can't do this for an entire walk if you're trying to take a very long walk with a young dog. And in those cases, I would say, I'm going to do bits of that training, but I might also just make sure that they're in a nice no pull harness or something, so that parts of the walk that they're just going to pull, I don't have to be continuously engaging them.
And then there's some general questions about how to use tricks for. One is biting, and another is a dog who's anxious to go into the crate.
Well, let's hang on to those as well, because I still got a bunch of stuff left, and I may answer some of those questions as we go on. Some of the things we haven't gotten to yet. All right. So, was there anything else before I move on, Deborah? Okay, I'm going to move to the next one. This is Sunny, and we're going to watch a couple of videos with Sunny. And so any of you who have questions about dogs who are very anxious, the crate one, I'm actually going to really hit on in just a minute. We're going to do a bunch of crate stuff in a minute. But Sunny is a dog who is very anxious to the point of being quite shut down. So I was originally called in to help with Sunny because they live in Roslyn and Arlington, which is very kind of an urban part of Arlington. And Sunny did not want to go outside to go to the bathroom. So I got there and realized that this was a much larger problem than just not wanting to go outside to go to the bathroom. Sunny came from a puppy mill situation where probably she lived in a cage pretty much her entire life. You'll be able to see what we mean in a minute. In her home that she lived in, this area rug that she's laying on right now, she almost never left the area rug. And furthermore, there's a couch next to her that she was pretty much living on the couch as if it was her crate. She hardly got off the couch. She did not want to go to the other floors of the house. And if there was something lying on the floor like a towel, she wouldn't walk past it. So this is pretty extreme, and probably more extreme than most of what you're going to be experiencing. But it's a pretty good example of how much we can shift the dog's starting place when we're dealing with behavior and where they're concerned about things that are going on. First video is a baseline video, and this is a little hard to watch because it's about 1.5 minutes long, and I'm letting you watch the whole thing because I want you to really get a sense for what the starting point is with this dog. We're doing just some simple hand targeting, and you're going to see a whole lot of circling and a whole lot of avoidance behavior just from trying to do little bits of engagement with us. And here's the crazy part before I show you this video. I want you to keep in mind, this was an improvement over what we had done previously. We'd been working for a couple of months at this point. I got the camera out because for whatever reason, I thought this looked like an improvement. And here it is.
Are we done?
Hi.
Are we all on this one?
I think she's still got some in there.
Sunny touch?
I was wrong, by the way.
Who's that, baby? Here. Come here.
Yeah, see if you can re-engage
Sunny.
her.
Sunny. Sunny touch. Hey, baby. Sunny touch.
Do you think it's that noise that's...
There
Good
you go.
girl.
Sorry, I never did any time there. Sunny touch. Yeah, she's
It's, I mean, I think it's that, whatever that noise is. Do you think
Like
that's
that?
what it is
good
too?
girl.
Good.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, Pop. Hey, baby.
Do you think that's what it was, the noise?
Probably, but I think
Okay.
she's kind of. I don't know whether she's just had enough. Are you getting maxed out, babe? Are you getting maxed out? Sunny touch?
Yeah, maybe.
No. Well, they're almost back to retrieving, aren't you? Are we done? Are we done with this one?
That's hard to watch. This is where we began, where she could do that. You know, anything we tried to do to engage with her at all, throwing cookies on the floor, anything, that was more engagement than we had with her previously, where she would just get on the couch and just completely cut out. The next video is about 6 months later, and we switched from a hand target to a spoon. And I want you to watch her level of engagement on this next video. I think you can even see some little tail action, and see how things changed from that point to this point.
Sunny. Don't worry about the comments. Not about you've got your good side. Sunny.
Just focus on those noises.
Here, Sunny. Good girl. You got
That's
it.
such a
noises,
big deal
but
to me
she
that she's
still works
working through
through
all
it.
that noise too.
Yeah.
Is that, would
Oh,
you
yes.
say so?
Sunny. Good girl. Yeah, that is a big deal.
Already, we've got a different dog. She's happier. She's looking more comfortable, and she wants to actually engage with us a little bit. Same day, different trick. This brings back our foot targeting that I mentioned from earlier. We were also playing this game with her. We use paws up on an object for all kinds of trick training. I think maybe this one you can see her tail.
Sunny. Come on. There you go. Good girl. Good girl.
Good girl. You're the best. Okay, go get that one.
Yeah, it's a good girl.
So again, a little more engaged, some different tricks. We're using this to help her kind of move her body in different ways. You can see that she's not very comfortable with her movement. Now, here's my favorite one. This one is how much longer afterward? I think this is 2 months, 2 more months on top of that. And it's a little bit longer video. It's got 2 different kinds of foot targeting. And I want you to really pay attention now to how her attitude has changed.
Get this one. Good girl. Can I have 2 paws? There you go. Okay. Go get it. All right, let's do the other one. Okay. Go get. Right, Sunny. What did we do here? Look. Yeah.
Wow, look at her.
Girl. Good girl. Oh, 2 taps. Good girl.
Oh, she's so funny today. Look at her.
Good girl. Good girl. You're like she's very aggressive.
Yeah.
Today more than she's been before. Can I get another one? Yeah.
I can't even believe it.
And one more with the big one, then we'll do the little one. There you go, good girl. Right, shall we do this one? Shall we do this one? Wow, good girl. Almost.
A little harder. Good girl.
Good girl. Good girl. We got another one? Good girl.
Oh
Good girl.
my gosh, look at her. Good girl.
Girl.
So I made you watch that horrible minute plus first video of her just walking in circles around the couch because I want you to really realize that this last video, she kind of looks like a normal dog. And if I just showed you this video, you wouldn't think a whole lot of it. It's like there's a dog, she's doing foot targeting. But the before and after are incredibly dramatic. I would show up to work with them and Jean would say things like, you wouldn't believe it, today she put her nose on the glass pane of the back doors. And it was this big celebration moment. And so that the shifting, just by doing some different kinds of tricks, the shift in her whole demeanor throughout her regular life completely changed. The final video I want to show you with Sunny is the leash. So the problem, again, the biggest problem, the reason I was called in was she didn't want to go outside. And so as you can imagine, the leash would come out and everything would just shrink down and she would freeze and she would hold still and she would stop eating. She wouldn't take hot dogs anymore. And it was all over with. That leash, it was even visible, much less if it was put on her. And so this was a way we used some targeting to make the whole leash process feel a little bit more fun and it would feel like she had a little more control over it.
Target. Good. Target. Good. Target. Good. All right. Good. All right. Target. Good. Target. Good. Target. Good.
You could still see she froze up a little bit when the leash was clipped on. She still kind of went still and froze, but she was able to recover from it and go back to doing some targeting tricks, which is, again, big difference from when we began. This was also a way that we could take her tricks on the road. So targeting the poop bag meant the poop bag holder meant that if Jean's outside and wants to work with her, she's got the poop bag holder right there. It's a prop that she can take with her. It's one of her games on the road. All right, we're going to talk now about cable, and I will show you what cable looks like. Somebody was asking about working with the crate, and we're going to specifically talk about that one. So cable, the main thing we were working on was not actually the crate. Cable has a lot of other, he had some kind of bigger reactivity issues and things like that, but we wanted to work with the crate as well while we were doing things with him. Gave us some other projects to work on and some sort of stretch goals to play with. Turned out to be a pretty good use of time because it's given him confidence in some other areas. But we started working with him on the crate with some basic crate training stuff that one does with crate training. Here's an example of what it might look like when we normally start working with dogs and getting them comfortable with the crate. We're doing just a toss in, toss out. So treat goes in the crate, he goes in the crate, treat comes out of the crate, he comes out, he can go in and out to kind of practice that. And we do this with puppies all the time. I use this with adult dogs as well. For most dogs, this works pretty well to get them comfortable going in and out of the crate, no big deal. However, Cable's crate experience had been extremely negative. And we don't know anything about what it was like when he was a puppy because Chris and Donna adopted him at about 6 or 7 months of age. And so we don't know if he had bad experiences or just had no experiences, but what we do know is that he was dramatically upset about being crated. And some of the videos you're going to see, you might be able to see on the door of the crate there, the doors, the bars are chewed quite up because he was trying so hard to get out of the crate at whatever point that they were originally trying to crate him. He doesn't need to be crated anymore. It's not actually an urgent thing. He's an adult dog and can be loose in the house. But any other efforts to work with the crate had been terrible because he didn't even want to go near it. He would walk in a big circle around the crate, just having it being in the house. When we did this kind of in and out game, it was good, it was fine, except that he would hit the bars of the crate and make a jingling noise, and then he would say, yeah, I'm not going to go back in there again. Or the crate pan would move and pop, and he would say, yeah, I'm not going to go back in there again. And then the worst thing that happened was one day I thought, oh, look at this, he's doing great. He was laying in the crate like in the picture you saw, and he's moving in and out of the crate, and no big deal. And so I moved the crate door a couple of inches just to start playing with getting him used to the movement of the door. And he said, nope, and would not go back in the crate again for 4 full weeks. So we had a pretty major challenge ahead of us. We needed to have some new plan. So here's the new plan. I'm going to show you the video and talk about it at the same time. What we did was we used some targeting, and we taught Cable to target these little clips that we could attach to the side of the crate or move around. I'll narrate a little bit. We started working with targeting the side of the crate, started moving the target around so he'd be inside the crate and targeting, and moving it to the door of the crate so there's some control.
Target, good. Target, target, good. Target. Target, good. Target, target. Target, good. Target. Good.
Is that Sabrina running or not?
Target. Good. 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 Target.
Good boy. He's gonna offer to go in the crate. I am totally accepting that. If his break is the crate. Good boy.
All right. Target. Good. Target. Good. Good. Target. Good. Target. Good. You coming out? Here's your treat. Target. Good.
So she gets
Set up here is I have my dog there where we're doing some work on the dog social skills, and we've just been doing a big session of some other kinds of tricks, and he
Do you want a crate break?
decides to go over and ask to go into the crate.
Okay. Yeah.
That's not trying to
He
get
doesn't
out.
care that it's not open.
You're winning on that one.
And he's waiting while I'm turning around.
What I can say, if our goal was to get him into the crate, there are some other major things I would have done in addition to what you're seeing in this video. The first major thing I would have done is I would have switched the kind of crate to a totally brand new kind of crate so that he would have a fresh association with it. I would probably say we will switch to an airline crate, one of the plastic ones instead, and that would probably make it go a little more quickly. And I also don't think that this is something I could have done if we had to have him crated in a couple of weeks. I don't know that we could have done it with this, with the level of unhappy that he was. So number of sessions was quite a few. But I also feel like it's pretty cool that we are moving him to this point, because the reality is when you've got a dog who's just upset, most of the time we just say, oh, well, they don't like the crate. that's not going to work. And most dogs are going to make progress a lot more quickly than this, because most dogs don't have quite the negative response that he did.
Did you
Other questions on
get to
this
the
one?
point where you could close the door and leave the room?
No, in fact, this close the door thing this was actually one of the more recent ones we did. And that was the fact that I closed the door and turned my back on him was already a pretty big deal. So this is about the level that he is working at this point. But I see it being realistic that we could start closing the door and leaving the room, or closing the door and getting up and working on some other things while he settles in there. So that'll be check back in with me in a year. We'll see if we've got him actually crating fully and things like that. I didn't mean check back in with me in a year because that's how long it's going to take. I meant how often we come back to do presentations. I don't know how long it'll take to get to that point, but a lot of progress happening really quickly at this point.
What about a dog that was crate trained at night and abruptly started not wanting to go in anymore?
This kind of thing could help with that. Playing some games with the crate is our main go-to to try to get them to be more comfortable. I would certainly want to ask the question of what changed, why do they not want to go in anymore? Are they at an age where they are adolescent and sort of deciding that maybe this isn't something that they would care to do anymore. A lot of adolescents, we might try to just work through, giving them some really good stuff in their crate. There are other crate ideas that you can do, like feeding meals in a crate to make sure that they're comfortable in there. But it's probably some combination of getting them more comfortable and just assessing whether there's some reason why they don't want to be in their crate anymore that's beyond just, adolescence.
And Mary wants to know how long you work a cue each training session.
If I understand the question correctly, if like say something like that target where we do target, so cut like a minute at a time, and then we might take a short break and then do it again and take a short break and do it again. But we're never continuously working the same thing for more than a minute or two. Rarely, I shouldn't say never. It's possible there was some video in there that went a little bit longer. But I'm also kind of reading the dog and seeing if they feel like they're done. In the video that last clip, he told me he was done because he got up and asked to go get into his crate, and so that let me know whatever it was we were working on had gone too long. This is so hard because I'm used to being able to look at you guys and sort of tell if I've answered the question or not. And it's hard to know if I've hit the right note. Deborah, other questions on the crating?
No.
Okay. All right. So let me finish up with a couple more cable videos, and that because I want to. Deborah, let me ask you: do we have hard stop at 4?
No, you can go as long as you want.
Okay, great. So that way that'll get me, give us some time. I can still answer some additional questions at the end if we don't get them in here. The next cable video has to do with his crate pan, and the crate pan was not in the crate in that last video. You may have noticed if you were watching astutely, because the pan made noises, and he said, "I don't want to do that." So this is a video of what it sort of looked like when we began with the pan. He did not want to step on it. It moved, it made noises. It was horribly scary. And so, like the question earlier, would we lure him onto the pan to get him more comfortable with it? Yeah, absolutely. We'll try that. Well, that's the starting point. Let's see how that goes. Here's a video of how that went. And what you're going to see is that his front feet are on the pan and his back feet are pretty happy not going anywhere near the pan. And would I throw the treat across and see if he'd walk across? Yes, absolutely. And we did that. He would generally just walk around, throwing the treats on the pan. We got him. I don't know if we ever got his back feet on the pan by just trying to use treat lures and positioning them to get him to walk on it. What we did instead was I brought over a box, and I brought over an agility wobble board, and we started playing some games that involved stepping into and stepping onto things. And by doing that, we made the pan be sort of one more game in this little sequence. And let's see.
Okay.
Nice back feet.
Got one of them there. Come on, buddy.
He's got getting in the box. He's got going across the wobble board. No big deal. I don't think Chris needed to be necessarily luring him as much at this point, but no big deal. Now, when we come back to the pan's even moving a little bit. But he's much more willing to walk.
Get right on the thing.
This is going to transition into some of our outdoor stuff. So, as I mentioned, the big reason I was there wasn't really to fix the crate, and wasn't really to get him walking on a crate pan, which may have some use, but it may not. Where it turns out that it did in fact have some use is building up his confidence for some of his outdoor work. So I mentioned Cable is really reactive. He was really reactive. He would get really crazy seeing other dogs, neighbors, strollers, joggers, all of the things that we see in a lovely, quiet Arlington neighborhood. And he worked really nicely for us inside, but the problem we had trying to go take him outdoors to work on the reactivity was we'd get outside and he would completely shut down. We got nothing out of him. He really, even just to try to look at me or trying to get hand targeting and things like that was very difficult. So we did this for a little while and, you know, did some of our standard things for a little while. One day, the day that's in this video, I thought, hey, let's take his props outside with us. So we set up his little playground outdoors and had him come out. And this is what happened immediately afterward.
Hey, buddy, let's go. Come on, kid. Yes, yes, yes. Keep going, buddy. Keep going. Keep going. Gorgeous. Yes, yes. Come on, buddy. Come around. Come on, buddy. Come around. Come on. Yes, yes. Hey, buddy.
That's fine. Let him take a minute if he wants it. Yeah. That's awesome.
If I were to have shown you a before video, it would have been the most boring video ever, because it would have involved us standing outside with the dog just just standing there, not doing anything at all, not looking at us. And that would be assuming nothing was around, because if there was anything around, we would have had to go back. We would have had to go back inside. In this video, you would never know it, but the kids across the street are playing outside, and normally my dog is Caleb. Normally Cable would be barking at them like crazy. You can't even tell. He stops and looks across the street for a minute, and then he's able to keep moving because he's just playing his outdoor games. And this is where props can come in to be very valuable tools. The way I imagine this kind of feels is like when we're children and we look at the carnival and we see the Ferris wheel and the merry-go-round and the lights and everything, and we think, oh my gosh, this is amazing. We're in this magical new world. And I have to wonder if that isn't a little bit what Cable feels when he came out the door and he's like, oh my goodness, my toys are out here. We're going to play games now. And just like nothing, again, look like a normal dog outside doing normal things. He's playing with all of his props. Now, the follow-up for this is that Cable has made significant progress with his ability to go on walks and be able to be around dogs and people and strollers and things with, I'm not going to say never reacting, but significantly less reactivity than what he'd had before. Originally, Chris said he would never walk him in his work clothes because he was going to end up with feet all over him and muddy, torn clothing. And now he will actually walk him in his work clothes because he feels pretty confident that even if Cable has a little bit of a moment, he can work him through it and move him on pretty quickly. And these props were a huge transition point. It's not that we needed to use them forever, but we used them as a way to kind of bridge that gap between his ability to just sort of function with us outdoors. And then when he could start doing that more easily, he could, he's just capable of doing those behaviors for us more often and more easily. Are there any questions? One other thing, are there any questions on that piece right there? And Deborah, I'll.
Specifically, I don't think so.
Okay, all right. So here's the last thing I want to talk about, and this one's going to go pretty quickly. This might answer one of the original questions. I want to talk about the dog that doesn't want to have any interaction or petting at all. And the answer for dogs that don't want any interaction, I'll pull my slides back up here, is going to be don't pet the dog. So if I've got a dog who's fearful or does not like being handled, which may or may not be fear related, we have people say, can I pet your dog? And our natural response to be polite tends to be something like, well, you know, sure, okay. But the moment you're hemming and hawing about it, we already know that this is not a good idea. Don't say yes. The dog doesn't want to be petted, and you know that. And so you're putting the dog in a situation that's making them uncomfortable. So another answer could be, no, you may not pet my dog, and give a reason, like he's shy, or he's, you know, I just adopted him recently and he's scared of strangers, he's not used to us yet, or he's going to bite you. Whatever the reason is going to be, you can say no. That one's a little tricky too, because humans don't always listen to that. Humans don't like that answer. They would like to pet your cute, adorable little doggo, and they want to pet your dog. And so when you tell them no, they're not always responsive to that. So the third option, and sometimes what can be a really good option, is to say, no, you can't pet my dog, but would you like to see one of their tricks? And so while you're asking your dog to do some tricks, some, you know, spin or sit pretty or whatever kinds of tricks, you are giving your dog something else to do. You're keeping them sort of busy and letting them know that they don't need to worry about the other person. And you're giving your person something to do too. So just like I want to redirect and distract my dog, I may need to redirect and distract my human. And instead of the human feeling like they're going to come and get in my dog's business, they can now still be engaged watching my dog do something really cute. And then they're going to give my dog space, and everybody's going to be happy. So this is a great strategy. This might be the strategy for, I forget who was the person who said that, you know, I think it was the mother petting the dog was bad and she would bite. Don't pet the dog. Nobody should be petting the dog if he's going to bite. But you can ask the dog to do something else instead, and you can still set up this way to have some engagement and interaction between the person and the dog that doesn't involve touching. What the kinds of tricks I want to do if we're going to do this is I probably want to do things that are a little bit active, or if they are not active, I want to make sure that my dog is kind of far away from the person, because I do want to make sure the dog's got plenty of distance from the person, and I don't want to make my dog feel pressured. I don't want the person to be in my dog's personal space. I want to make sure we have distance. And I'm probably going to ask for some things that are really easy for my dog and maybe active, keeping them moving as opposed to expecting them to hold still, which might make them uncomfortable. And things like rollover also, they're very vulnerable. If you're asking your dog to roll on their back, that might not be the best trick to choose when your dog is feeling space sensitive or uncomfortable. So you want to make sure that you're setting this up for safety, and you're setting it up to be comfortable and fun and relaxing for your dog. The more you put your dog in situations where they can feel comfortable and they can relax, the more likely they're going to accept the person or the handling or the whatever in the future. Building some trust with them. To summarize, there are a lot of reasons why we might teach tricks. I can use it to exercise my dog, which is great on these rainy or hot days, or if you're on the West Coast, these, smoke days. This is especially helpful if I've got a situation where maybe my dog is not very good on walks, or I don't really want to take my dog for walks because it's not fun. If I'm doing tricks inside the house, I don't have to feel guilty about taking a shorter walk. We can stay in the house and work on some tricks. It strengthens your relationship. The more tricks that you do with your dog, the more behaviors that you train together, the more responsive they're going to be when you do need to ask them to do something that is in fact important. And fun fact, my dogs are more snuggly with me when I train with them regularly. So if you'd like your dog to be more affectionate, train some tricks. Trick training can spice up your training. And this is very important if you're working on serious behavior problems. If you have a dog that bites you or bites people, if you have a dog that's really reactive on leash, if you have a dog that's terrified all of the time, it is not fun to work on those problems, because those problems are projects. They don't take weeks and months. They take months and years to make a difference and to make a change. And so if you are working with a dog on one of these kind of problems, you have got to take some time to do something else, something that's fun. And that's going to work on letting you enjoy time with your dog and letting your dog enjoy time with you. And as you've seen, I hope, none of that is a waste of your time anyway, because you can then put all of that training back into your actual quote unquote real problem. And finally, you can stretch your dog's comfort zone in a fun way. So especially you could see with Cable and Sunny, I hope, stuff that we did that were the kind of the trick training completely influenced how they were able to cope with life in other circumstances. It's probably easier to see with Sunny than it was with Cable, but boy, a lot of the trick training we did indoors completely made a difference with his behavior outdoors, because it took us a long time to get him to work with us outdoors. So getting started, your webinar homework from this is think about what some behaviors that you would like to change. What do you want to address? And then think about first what kind of trick might help. Do you think it would help to do an active trick or a stationary trick? Do you think maybe we would both stationary and active? Do you have any props or tools that are nearby that you can use? There's a retaining wall that you walk past. Maybe you play games on that in the morning. Or there's a bench that you walk near. You could the poop bag holder on the end of your leash. When I'm doing training sessions in people's homes, I'm always using my cell phone, or I'll use the remote control and we'll play some games with those. Really importantly too is, what's your dog's favorite trick? What does your dog like to do? When we saw Sunny earlier and her little tail got wagging, it was so much fun. It doesn't matter what the trick is that she's doing. What matters is that she's having a good time doing it. And then that's helping her be able to relax and sort of enjoy life. You can also think about what trick, you can think of this backwards. Is there a trick you'd like to train? And think about so you can use it in real life. So can you use put away your toys as a real life thing? Sure. What if people come over, your dog's excited to see visitors, and you play the put away your toys game instead? That's a great way to, again, give them something to do. It doesn't matter what it is. If you need inspiration for tricks, the Do More With Your Dog program is fantastic. They have a tricks titling program, which goes from novice through intermediate, advanced, expert, and champion. It's not necessarily that you care about doing titles or anything like that, although it's fun. But what is valuable about the Do More With Your Dog program is that they've got these trick lists, and you can check out the lists. And if you need ideas for what to train next, pull up the novice list, look to see if your dog knows anything on that list, and that's where you can start, because those are going to be things that are pretty easy and that most dogs are going to be able to do a number of tricks from those lists right from the get-go. And then you can, if you keep going with that, then you can keep layering up to harder and harder tricks. And the final thought I would leave you is that whatever it is you're going to do, just do it. Don't overthink it. Don't feel like you have to get fancy. A lot of the stuff we talked about today wasn't particularly fancy performance kind of things. They're just simple games that we're playing. If you grab a handful of your dog's kibble tonight before you feed dinner and do that much training, whatever's in your hand, you're going to get a lot accomplished. And if you did that a couple times a week, you'd be surprised how much training that you're going to get done. So my challenge to you is going to be, pick something that you think you might want to work on, and then just do a handful of kibble a day to do it. All right, from here, now we'll go back over to the questions. Deborah, do we have anything else?
Yeah, one of them is trick suggestions for a dog who is generally happy with people and other dogs, but guards his food and randomly guards things.
Randomly guards things. Like what kind of things do we have?
Well, she said including my other dog.
including the other dog. Well, whatever trick suggestions I would be doing is I would probably do a lot of stationing based tricks. And that is going to help, first of all, while you're teaching the trick, you'd have one dog's over here and one dog's over here. So they're doing totally different things, not near each other. And then the other place that might help is that if you're seeing a scenario where you see dog A is about to go be snarky with dog B, you can send dog A back to a spot or a place that is away. You might even be able to circumvent some problems that might come up. So for example, around the house, what is my dog doing? I'm sorry, what do I have in my environment? A lot of times you've got a couch or an ottoman, or there's some piece of furniture, a chair, something you can use. You might do stationing on a piece of furniture, assuming they're allowed, which I'm guessing a lot of people that are here today dogs are allowed on the furniture. But let's say you have the first dog stations up on the ottoman and the second dog stations over on the couch. When you're doing tricks with them or playing training games with them, if they learn to go to their spot, they're getting fed on their spot, separate from each other. And then if they're looking a little funny at some point during normal life, you can say, hey, come here, puppies, on your place, and maybe separate them a little bit from each other before anything happens.
Another question that's a little bit complicated. Catherine moved during the quarantine, and so she was never able to introduce her dog to the kids next door. At this point, the kids run up to the gate and the dog barks and the neighbors think her dog is aggressive. And what can she do to start this whole process over again?
Sure. Assuming that the kids are willing to be part of this, and usually kids are, one of the first things you might do is set up a situation where the kids have a target. So the kids have a thing to go stand on. So you're going to give the kids a mark on the ground. You can use chalk or something, even make a big X on the ground. And you say, okay, kids, this is where your spot is. You're going to stand here, and other kid, you're going to stand over here. And you can use also, the target could also be something like touch the pole. You're going to touch this pole over here and keep your hand on the pole. You're going to stand in your spot, and then I'm going to bring out Fluffy on leash. And probably you don't want to do this in the backyard or right where the gate is, because I'm guessing at this point it's become a whole thing. So go someplace separate. You're giving a kid somewhere to stand. You're bringing the dog out on leash, so everyone's at a safe distance from each other. And then you can start to assess from there. If the dog is still kind of going nuts, you may just try to keep some distance and do a lot of feeding, some treats, and just generally trying to get the dog more comfortable. Or you can work them the exact same way we worked Rex and Bella earlier. Let's do some tricks over here while the kids are over there. But if we've got a case where the kid looks like maybe it's going to be okay because we changed the situation, we're not in the yard anymore, now we're in a new place, the kids aren't running anywhere because they're standing on their nice X's, you might even be able to have the kids start asking for the trick. And even if you sort of do a little fake out, I help. All right, kids, ask for a sit. And you're like, you know, tell the dog what to do. You could even have the kids throwing the treats over to the dog and asking for the behaviors. And in this way, they're sort of interacting, but they're not actually physically touching each other. And then again, you can use that to judge, do I think everything is kind of cool now? Do we, you know, it's okay if we get closer and meet, or maybe we just end this session today at 10 feet away and that was plenty for today, or 20 feet away, or whatever the appropriate distance is going to be. But that would be a way that you can start bringing some, again, it could be simple tricks, sit down, high five, paw. The kids are also going to probably enjoy being part of that process though, and doing the dog training.
Someone else wants to know how old Sunny was.
I was wondering if anyone was going to ask that. Sunny is supposedly in that video 5 or 6. I find that really hard to believe, as I imagine you do as well.
Yeah.
I think she's probably a lot older than that.
And then There's someone else who is wondering what tricks to use. She has a dog that steals the treat bags from other dog owners outside.
All right. So is this kind of, I'm wondering if this is like a dog park situation, or I'm guessing that the dog, okay, so maybe it's like a neighborhood, the dogs are playing off leash together and other people have their pouches that the dog is stealing. I'm guessing that's probably what we're talking about. So that's going to be any trick that involves your dog staying closer to you. So basic recall kind of things. If they're all loose and playing and running around and you're far away from the dog, that's always going to be a challenging situation because your sphere of control is way the heck over there. So you might need to work on just some remedial paying attention, or some off exercises as well, which are less of a, I mean, it's a trick if you teach it like a trick, but working on kind of some off leave it. We do, and I will say we teach off leave it also as a trick too. So it might be that you practice some self-control games, which feels a little bit less like an answer with a trick. But what I'm going to do in that case still is, let's say I don't have a very good off leave it, and let's say my recall is kind of meh. That might be a case I see my dog beelining for the person that's over there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's the treat pouch. I know what's going to happen next. I can try calling my dog, Fluffy, touch, and see if I can get them to run back over and touch, or if I can get them to sit or down or something from the far away distance. And that's one of the reasons why in advanced classes we actually teach tricks at a distance, is so that we can use it for situations like that. Can you be far away from me and still sit or down?
Jeanette has a 1-year-old dog who's very friendly and just wants to meet other dogs, but the dog starts whining and crying, and even inside he continues to whine and cry.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's hard. So so I'm guessing he's inside. He knows the dog is outside maybe, and he's whining and crying.
I think he's whining and crying outside, and then even when they're inside after the walk, it continues.
Got it. So this might be a place where I don't want the high energy tricks. I might want to focus more on some low energy tricks, or doing a balance of 75% calm tricks and then a few motion-based tricks mixed in, just to keep it interesting. But I might want to start with those calm tricks indoors, work on some, and it could be mat or stationing up on a piece of furniture, or doing tricks that involve holding still. Work on that calm breathing, and then start working on those things outdoors when nobody is around. That's where the transition gets tricky. Is first I want to know if the dog isn't present, if the other dog isn't present, does your dog have any things that they can do? Do they have a little vocabulary of behaviors that they can do? Most of the time what we find is that we don't try to ask for those behaviors until we need them. And what we need to do is go out and practice those behaviors when nobody's around, so that we know that they exist when the other dog shows up. And so this would be a case of, I think, gradually working up to being able to handle when the other dog is present. Certainly coming in the house and working on it is a great time, because even if there's some recovery period, if today it takes 3 minutes for her to stop whining, and you can start working with her, and then tomorrow, next week, it takes 30 seconds for her to stop whining, that's an improvement. It's not curing, the problem's not cured, but it definitely 3 minutes to 30 seconds of recovery would be a big improvement.
Dealing with stationing, did you teach a and a release word, and how would you handle the dog leaving without you releasing them?
That's a really good question. Yes, absolutely. Teach release words. Release words are a very important part of stay, because any kind of stay, which includes any kind of stationing really, is a bookend. So you give some kind of signal that says it's time for you to stay now, and we give a signal that says it's over. I'm going to revise my answer slightly. Sometimes I'm using a release word, but probably most of the time. If I don't have an end of a stay, if I don't have the bookend, what's going to happen is my dog's going to decide when the stay is over. They're going to choose that the stay is finished, because probably when I take my attention off of them, I turn to talk to somebody else, and they're going to say, oh, mom's not paying attention anymore, I can go now. And so the release word is really important to make sure that stay can continue all the way to the end. I'm losing some function here.
And there's a Sheltie with a very strong herding instinct who dominates her 12-year-old lab. How can she get her to leave him alone?
That could be the okay, sorry. So the Sheltie was dominating the lab.
Yeah.
That could be maybe management. It may be that they need to be separated at least some of the time so that the poor lab gets a break. But that could also be some stationing. Can can the Sheltie come and hang out over here and get reinforced for being over there instead of being over bugging the lab? And then the lab can kind of do whatever you want.
Okay. Linda, this is a note from me to you. The tricks class that we're having starting on September 22nd, if you could look on our website on the tricks page, it'll explain a lot. If not, you can contact us and we can give you more information. I'm not really the person who knows the structure of the class. See if there's anything else. Oh, how do you overcome the fear of being in a car?
Cars are hard. What I have done with this is a lot of times we'll do some kind of games with the car, just like we did with the crate, really, where we'll play with the car when the car's not moving, and have dogs kind of get in and get out and do some kind of fun games with the car when it's not going anywhere. So we do the association. And if we've got a case where a dog doesn't want to jump in the car, we might use something like a small table or something next to the car so that they can hop up onto the equipment.
Period.
And then be able to get into the car from the piece of equipment instead of jumping up from the ground.
And well, here's another one. How can you get your dog to stop barking and pay attention to you when there are so many distractions like other dogs and people?
Honestly, that's a whole talk by itself, but it's going to be the same basic answer, which is we're going to start indoors, start playing some training games just inside to see, do we have good attention indoors? And then it's going to be, can we move outdoors so that we can get attention when there's nothing around, and kind of have to work on it one little bit at a time, adding distractions. But that is for sure, it's a bit of a process. That's not going to be a quick answer, or that's not going to be a quick fix, no matter what you're doing with that one.
Does anybody else have a last minute question before we go? If you do, this is your chance. No? Okay, well, thank you very much, Erica.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, thank you, Erica.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching. You can get more information about me and Woof's Dog Training Center in the description for this video. We will have our website and Facebook information. You can also subscribe now to this channel for more videos from your dog's friend.